want to share the reality of making $1 million a year from having a podcast and building a podcast out, and how you can do the same. So the podcast, when it first started out, of course, didn't have many subscribers, didn't have many viewers, and it was just putting in and investing the time and the resources to build it up. Now, when I first started, I didn't have the expectation of where it would go. I didn't have the expectation of creating and doing the things that I do now. It just didn't cross my mind. It was just something I was passionate about, and I think that's so important. The foundation of anything that you do, and especially anything that you're going to do technically full time and create time freedom from, it's going to be something that you have to be passionate about, and you have to have passion for, because that's what's going to get you through those early stages, those early moments where things aren't working out and things aren't getting the results and definitely not making money from it to begin with. That was the reality for a good, probably almost a year. Almost a year we hadn't monetized the channel. We had seen growth, but we weren't making a return yet. And even after that year, the return was, to begin with, steady, of course, and wasn't necessarily making a profit to begin with. But as we continued to grow, as we continued to focus, as we continued to put time and effort and resources and research into what will work better, how to optimize, and how to create better results. So not only better results in terms of views and subscribers, but better results for our sponsors and so on. Then it got to a point where, as I said now, $1 million a year so far, and our goal for 2025 is to try and 2 to 3x that. So to make it a $2 to $3 million a year enterprise. And as part of that, though, I have time freedom. To a degree, I have location freedom. I'm able to travel business class. On this particular time, it's the first time traveling first class with the family. I'm able to visit different areas of the world. I'm able to give the family what they need and what they want. To a degree, of course, I have to keep limitations on, but they're living a life, and the family as well, are living a life that they choose, and there's a lot more freedom involved, a lot less stress. So it's a huge blessing. And it's the goal that I always had growing up, and it's the goal of a lot of people out there. The majority of people that I come into contact with have that same goal, and you can have it too. Now, whether it's trading, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's fashion blogging, it doesn't matter. Whatever goal and passion that you have, I couldn't stress enough the power of having a personal brand or some form of brand on social media in 2025. It is a no-brainer. Like, it is probably the highest reward to risk ratio, I would say. It's like the lowest risk to the highest reward possible through social media. Now, I understand not everyone wants to have their face out there. Not everyone wants to make videos like this and be talking to cameras, etc. That's fair. That's not the only way to use social media. You can build a faceless channel. You can face faceless brands. At the end of the day, I just don't see why you wouldn't want to have a brand on social media, not only from the authority and the access that you can have and the networking that you can do, but like I said, the monetization. Like, for you to get to $10,000 or pounds a month, it's never been easier thanks to social media. If you can build a brand and build a following, you can then monetize that in so many different ways, whether it's sponsorships, whether it's courses, whether it's education, mentorship, building a software, building a product, even just affiliation. Affiliation's the easiest one, because all you're saying is, here's a great company that I like and that I use, and you should use it too. And you can make very easily $10,000 or pounds a month just from affiliation, which means you don't even own the business. You're literally just from having your following and telling your followers about this particular company or product, or whatever it may be, are making an income. And £10,000 or dollars a month will give you the start of financial freedom. It will allow you to at least be full-time doing just that. And I cannot stress enough the power of doing so. Now, don't get me wrong, is it going to be easy? It's going to be easier, far easier than trading. It's going to be far easier than starting a traditional business. It's going to be far easier than probably your 9 to 5. That's the reality. And that's why I said earlier, time freedom-ish, right? Time freedom in terms of, I do get to choose when I work. I do get to choose. But for me to be able to have the $1 million a year podcast, or to try and take it to $2 to $3 million a year, that means I'm putting in time. I'm putting in effort. It's not passive, right? But at least by me putting in all that work, my wife doesn't have to work. She can, well, I say that, but obviously she's looking after the kids and looking after the home, and that's a full-time job in itself. And to some degree, I would stress that probably harder than what I do. The point is, she doesn't have to go work and do a job because of the time and effort that I put into the podcast. And I'm thankful for that, and I don't complain, and I love that. But my kids, the same thing. Like, even my mum, right? If she chose not to work anymore, then she could not choose not to work anymore, right? But she chooses to work still, because that's the sort of person she is, and that's probably reflected on who I am. What I'm getting at is, anything worth doing, anything that you're going to get a high reward from, anything that you're going to make money from or allow you to be full-time from, is going to take time and effort. There is no money for nothing. There is no easy money. There is no do this little thing a couple hours a day and you'll make loads of money. Because even if you trade, for example, and you trade for 2 hours a day, that doesn't mean that you're making all this money just off 2 hours. It's the discipline, it's the routine, it's all the years prior to that as well that you put effort into. And even with those 2 hours, there's a lot of routine around that and still actions that need to be taken place. And still, that's still 2 hours. There's no money for nothing. So it's very important to remember that. What I would say is starting a brand in 2025 has never been easier. Reason being is, if you go back and you look at some of the OGs of social media, they didn't really have anyone to learn from. They didn't really have anyone to take advice from. While now, if you're starting, let's say you're starting a podcast, you obviously have a crazy, insane amount of successful podcasts from mine to many others before me, and even those who have even come after me and performed very well, to be able to use as a case study, to be able to use as a reference, to be able to say, oh, this is what they did well, this is what worked for them, and how can I look to replicate or make my own spin on things there, for example. Or even whether it's a social media, let's say you're into the fitness industry and you want to start doing fitness vlogs. Again, you get so many that you can look at and go, okay, this is what seems to be working, or this is a style I resonate with. How can I replicate? How can I put a spin on it? How can I give my own edge? So it's never been easier from a standpoint of how to, what to do to get started, as well as the amount of equipment. Like this camera right here that we're using is a Osmo DJI Pocket 3, tiny camera. The stand connects to it. There's microphone automatically connected to it. It's so easy, and it's high quality as well in terms of the quality of the image and the camera itself. In comparison to when I first started, I had it wasn't massive, but I had this much larger camera with its own stand and there's a big microphone attached. While this is so much more subtle, so much more mobile, so much more convenient at a price point that isn't crazy out of reach. It might be not where you start, right? I didn't buy this straight away. I probably wouldn't have had the money to buy this straight away, for sure. But don't let that hold you back. That was something that held me back. And that was something, no doubt, if I was to look back and say, what would I do differently? I would start sooner and not allow the thoughts of, I don't have tens of thousands of dollars on equipment to hold me back, right? I'd start with a webcam on my laptop. I would start with my phone, for sure. Like the blessings of most people have these phones nowadays, and these phones, the quality of these phones are incredible as well, right? So there's no excuse really when it comes to starting. You have all the framework out there and all the examples to be able to use and the case studies and so on. You have the equipment to be able to begin. Like there's no excuse to start. Now, once you start, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit there and say just post 2 to 3 times a day across all social media and then keep posting and then one day it'll work. Because that might work, but at the end of the day, that's not efficient, and that's you're going to really struggle because you're probably going to post for a long period of time and not get any results, and the likelihood of you continuing is very slim. So the best thing you can do is really learn about really simple things. A hook, right? Like the way I started this video I wouldn't say is the most powerful hook, because I'm just freestyling this, but the hook was, I think it was like how I made $1 million a year from the podcast and create time freedom, something along them lines, or the reality of having $1 million a year from a podcast. That's a little bit intriguing. Maybe let's think of a better hook that we might use. Instead is like, I'm traveling first class on Emirates and it's thanks to the $1 million a year that I make from my podcast. Maybe a little bit better, I don't know. But what I'm getting at is you need to put some thought and energy into your content. Don't just freestyle all the time. Now, I like to freestyle. I like to kind of just go with the flow. I don't like scripts, but hooks, they're not scripts. That's just like your starting line, your foundation, and you can just flow with the rest. But the hook is so important for both long form and short form, because that's what's going to grab the attention, because your goal is to try and grab someone's attention, right? Why should they listen to this piece of video? I could sit there and say, trading's great, right? Trading's great. You know why? Because I think and so-and-so said, and that's boring, right? Especially the way I delivered that, right? There's no tonality. You got to think about your tonality. You got to think about your hand movement. You got to think about how you're going to engage that person. So instead, if I said, trading is the best thing in the world, and this is exactly why, it's more direct, it's more polarizing, it's more tonalities behind there, a lot more authority behind there. I'm guilty sometimes of just being loud all the time, a bit more louder with my words, but there's a lot of power in bringing your words down and whispering and bringing a bit more attention and a bit more calmness to your voice. You understand my point? Like, tonality is so important, and that does take a bit of time to get used to. It's not something that's natural, right? But again, if this is something you want to do and you want to take seriously and you want to make 10,000 plus a month from social media, then you're going to learn these things, and you're willing to learn these things, and you're willing to adapt and grow with these things. So thinking about hooks. And again, how can you research hook? The same exact process. Go out there and see someone in your industry. So let's say if it's a trader, you might go look at some of the hooks that I've used on short form where I'm just talking to the camera. You might look at someone like Tory Trades, for example. You might look at someone like Nasa Urimi, for example. You might look at someone like, who else is good with hooks I can think off the top of my head? Even like someone like Casper or Kimmel, like their hooks are doing really, really well. And it's just a hook. It's nothing, you're not trying to do anything crazy. It's literally just thinking, okay, what statement in the first 2 to 3 seconds seconds of this video, how do I get someone's attention, or at least their intrigue of, I should watch this video a little bit longer? At the end of the day, after that, it is about value. So after the hook, don't get me wrong, it's not like, oh, just have a good hook and that's it. You're getting views. Because views don't mean anything unless people engage, unless people actually take something away from your video. So it's very important to keep that in mind in terms of you have to use the hook, but then have value, right? Show a problem, but provide the solution is very, very important. And we'll give examples along the way. Once you've done that and really focused, now your posting consistently means something, because the quality of the content you're posting should generate results, right? And in the beginning, it's going to be difficult. When you're starting from zero, it is hard. I would say the hardest part of social media is your first 5,000 subs. Of course, really hard is your first 100, because you need some following for the content you're posting to get some engagement. So it's always good to have, share it on your personal page and try and get your friends and so on to follow it and engage with it. And be quite proactive. Don't be scared to send posts to people and say, hey, can you like this, comment on it, or share it with your friends or whatever it may be. And obviously make sure that you're engaging with the community that you're posting about. So whether it's fitness, whether it's trading, whether it's fashion, like make sure you get around those, influencers and within those hashtags and just engage with the content there. So it's just getting your name out there a bit more and people will engage and you comment and check you out. And again, that's for your first few hundred. And then hopefully the algo will help you push out more that way because you have people who are actually engaging with your content. But definitely the first 5,000 are the hardest. After 5,000, you'll probably pick up a lot more momentum. Obviously, after 10,000, you pick up a lot more momentum. I don't know why that is. I think it might be a psychological thing as people see, 5,000 followers or subscribers and they just more likely to engage versus if you have a few hundred or 1,000. One very important piece of advice I can give you when it comes to content creation and on this journey is don't get isolated on the numbers. Your metric for success isn't necessarily followers or subscribers or likes or anything like that. It's more so how valuable is the content and the feedback you're getting from the consumer, from the people viewing and choosing to follow. Because as I've said before, you're much better off having a really quality audience with 1,000 subscribers where say 800 of them are engaged versus having 100,000 and only 10,000 are engaged. So the metric of that quality of number is amazing, right? And if you're able to carry that, let's say if you both have 100,000, but one actually has, or let's say one has 100,000 with 10,000 engaged and the other has 20,000 with 10,000 engaged, that 20,000 is so much better in terms of a metric for success. So just don't get attached to the numbers. Don't get focused on the numbers. Otherwise, you're always going to have a hard time. Something my editor, my good friend Josh, who's been with me from day one on the podcast, always said to me from early. And I think it's good to have people around you who can keep you grounded, keep you focused on what matters for sure. And we'll come on to that in a moment. But he would always say to me, like, don't focus on the numbers because your best video is your next video. That's it. It's not about this video. Your best video and the most important video is always going to be your next one. And I've always kept that in mind. And I've always been quite decent. Don't get me wrong. There are times where, I think a video is going to do well and it really doesn't. And I'm like, why is this not doing well? And I want to learn why. And that's important, I would say. Why did that not perform well? Is there anything in particular? Was it just what it is? Or, is there a particular reason as to why that didn't perform as well as you thought or didn't perform as well as it should have? And therefore trying to learn and adapt and grow. Just like maybe you posted a piece of content and there's a new style that people are really interested in. As a prime example of last year, beginning of last year, there was a lot of heavily edited VFX, sound effects type of content did really, really well. As we got to the back end of last year, however, more raw, unfiltered, unedited, and really just plain videos started performing really well. So that pivot, that change, if you didn't pick up on that and you didn't make changes accordingly, you would probably have a tough time and probably be stressing out. Like, oh, my content was working so well, now it's not. Why? And it's simply because you didn't recognize this change and then just look to make those changes within your content. And that's something you have to be on board with. It's like trading. It's like, with the markets and the trading markets, they're never just moving the exact same. They're adapting, they're changing, there's different cycles. It's the exact same with social media. What's the metric for success, based on the actual platform that you're posting on? What is the type of content that particular platform is really engaging with? While TikTok, for example, really engages with, at one time, it was over 1 minute long and like a sequence or like a playlist of a video. So let's say like a long form chopped into 1, 2, 3 minute clips and then put onto a playlist. That was really heavy at one point. While on Instagram, you had these square reels that were becoming very popular and still are. On X, Reels, it was more like Threads have really become quite a popular thing. So it's learning those particular platforms, and it's definitely important to be able to post across all platforms, not just focus on just one, to have as many as possible. You might start with just one, but really, if you're posting short form, for example, there's no reason why you can't post that same piece of content across 3-4 different platforms. The reason for that is because you never know if one platform gets taken down, if you have any issues with one platform, at least you have backups. It's definitely very important, because you just never know in this day and age. You don't want to have all your responsibility, all of that pressure on one platform. Something happens, and then the amount of stress that you would have. After that, having a good team will help, and knowing that you will have to invest into the growth of your channel, the growth of your platform. All depends what you're doing, to be fair. If you're a fashion platform, for example, and you're a fashion blogger/blogger, the amount of investment might not be as high. To be fair, the investment might be higher in the beginning because you're buying the clothes. As you grow, you're going to get into a position where they will send you the clothes for free, which is fantastic. The most you'll probably have to invest, I imagine, again, I'm not a fashion blogger, so please don't come after me if you are, but I imagine the investment in terms of investing into better equipment, really paying attention to how you can get good shots of the clothes, the hauls, I think they're called hauls, something like that, hues, I don't know, but getting all these clothes, like unwrapping them, how are you capturing this, are you getting a better microphone to get some ASMR type content, so on and so forth. These are just things that are coming to my mind. While with podcasting, of course, is like building sets and having highest quality in terms of cameras and lighting and focusing on these things, right? Trading, same thing, like you might have better charting software, better equipment in terms of what you're using to do your screen records, even having better cameras and so on within your home or your studio that you use. There is an element of investment at a certain degree, not in the beginning, right? In the beginning, it's more time, and there might be a bit of investment. Like with me with the pod, I would pay for obviously studios, pay for an editor, but it was like lower budgets, of course. While with a fashion person, they're buying the clothes, while with a trader, they might be buying smaller equipment. But beyond that, investing back in, but then also on top of that, having a good team. It is really about quality over quantity. And a good team, what I would suggest, because it was something I used to really focus on in terms of, I really need to try and find these people. And this is before the pod. Try and find good people, try and find like the best team and so on. And trying to force it like that is never good. It just doesn't work. Like if you try and force these things, it really doesn't work. The best thing you can do is focus on just being the good person, and the right people will come into your journey and into your path accordingly, right? They really will. Like, as long as you're doing the right things, the right people will come into your path, and that is what you got to focus on. You got to focus on just doing the right things and looking out for them, of course. And there is a little bit of an element of trial and error. You are going to come across bad people and backstabbers and fake people. It is natural. It's part of the game. But your goal should be to really allow those people, when you recognize them, keep them close. Again, quality over quantity. So you're not about everyone, not trying to be friends with everyone, not trying to network with everyone. You're trying to find the right people. And then, from there, optimize. Like, then it's about the finer details. Like, what are the little details that generate the bigger results? What are the little things that you're not doing that really can help you improve further? And that's the stage we're at now. Stage we're at now is really optimizing and building out systems and finding the elements that are going to allow us to 2-3x without huge changes or drastic changes. And then from there, another 2-3x with some changes, right? So that's where we're at. Hopefully that'll give you some insights into what it took to get here, but also, what we're focused on. And also, like I said, it's a blessing. It's a reflective moment to sit here, in this quite large cabin, and with my daughter next to me, who's only going to be 6 soon and probably doesn't realize the blessing of what she has, but is still very polite and very thankful, thankfully. And my wife and 1-year-old son over in another booth over there about to have their food. It's a blessing, and it's all down to social media and the content creation side and building a brand. And I really truly strongly believe that everyone should, in some way, shape or form, in whatever manner they see fit, whatever they're passionate about, build a social presence and monetize and make at least £10,000/dollars or euros or whatever currency a month, so that they can be full-time, and there's no limitations on who can do it, why you can do it, how you do it. Follow the page, subscribe, do all of the good things, because we have so much more coming to really teach you and help you do that. And I'm not going to leave any stone unturned. We're going to try and give you as much and all the information possible to allow you to do that. So thank you for watching. If you watched this far, props to you. In the world of short form media, you made it. Take care.